Hello, my name is Brainerd Carey. I'm an artist and an author. I wrote this book and Making It in the Art World, which is essentially about case studies of different artists and how they've navigated the art world, and also gives a lot of tips for how to manage your own art career, regardless of whether you're emerging or a mid-career or mature artist. Today I want to talk a little bit about having exhibits in rural and suburban areas and the importance of putting together your own show. And the example I want to give is Michelle Grabner. She's an artist and is also a teacher, and she also co-curated the last Whitney Museum of American Art biennial, which is a pretty big deal. And she was born in Wisconsin, lived in Chicago, and I think is now in Maryland. And what she did was something very interesting that's becoming more and more popular. And what she did was, in the suburbs of Chicago, she opened a small, I wouldn't say gallery, but an exhibition space in a garage. And this is something that many artists have done, and it's always underrated, but it's a very powerful way of getting your work out there and being seen. What she did was she would curate and put together shows by different artists in a garage. It wasn't about selling art. She wasn't becoming a dealer. She was trying to get other artists noticed. She was trying to create conversations among artists. She was building a community of artists, and she was showing that things are possible to happen outside the confines of a city. So what she did was something that many other artists have done. I interviewed Jorge Pardo, who did something in LA that was similar. He literally had a show in a garage with friends, and that show launched many of their careers. What does that mean, really? I mean, he was outside of areas where people would normally travel, even in LA. When you have a group show with friends in a garage, in an apartment, in something that's not a gallery or a traditional pop-up, clean, white-walled space, it's interesting. It's an interesting destination for people. And so they would come around and they would take a look at what's going on. So what Michelle did was she would have these shows in this space. She called it the Suburban. And she would write little essays about each show, which she gave out, and that allowed her to not only understand the artist more, but allowed her to share her ideas on what was happening in art today and what was happening with these artists. It was engaging. That's the kind of thing that engages other curators. It was very popular. It was a success, meaning that the Suburban became well known. Curators and other people would make it a mission to go there, because that is their job, after all, curators. Their job is to simply look at many shows. And shows like that in suburbia that are put on by people just for the sake of the show with artists that they know are usually pretty interesting. It's a very, very different vision there than what you'd get out of a gallery. So the Suburban went on for a while. Now, years later, she opened up something else with her husband in Wisconsin, which was her birthplace. They bought a piece of land there and an old dilapidated building, and they called it the Poor Farm because that's what it was called. It was a place that I believe was for housing the homeless and poor. And she started an artist residency there, and the same thing, would have shows and would write little catalogs. She applied for grants to support the space. She got grants to support the space. She was not independently wealthy. She didn't have any access to money. She was teaching at the time. And it enabled her to, again, build a community of artists, which was very powerful. It enabled her to write about artists, which was also very powerful. And by powerful, I mean it gave her the ability to be known by the world of curators, by the world of museum directors. They started taking notice what is happening out there at the Poor Farm, what's going on at the Suburban. There were new models. Now I believe she's in Maryland and has a garage there with an apartment above it. And she's going to replicate that and likes that area now because it's even more off the beaten path as she sees it for the art world. So the idea of this concept, and what I'd like you to take away from the talk today, is that it's possible and very important even to have a show with other artists in a garage, in an apartment, outside a city, in suburbia, in rural areas. But when you do that, it's not just a show for those artists and for yourself. And it's not about necessarily selling the work and making money. It's about other people getting to know what's happening. So send out invitations, but ask all the artists in the show that you select to also send out invitations. Bring in whoever will come, and you'll see people will come. And then write about it a little bit. Talk to the artists. See if you can put together a little catalog. And I don't mean a beautiful printed book. I mean some papers that people can pick up and read about the artists. This is a powerful model that right now in 2015 is getting more traction. As everybody tends to head for the cities, there's more, it's more of a trend to think of, look at the artists outside the cities. There's a lot happening there. I hope this was helpful, and I'd love to hear about your projects or shows if you mount any. If you're interested in talking to me, working with me, you can use the link below to make a time to talk with me. Otherwise, I wish you the very best for your art career.